The larger-than-life legend, famous for the mustache, the bandana, and the signature "What you gonna do, brother?" was the face of wrestling in the 1980s.
No one expected what came next. After Hulk Hogan's death, they opened a garage no one had ever seen. It was hidden, quiet, and locked for years. But inside, not just cars, not just tools. What they found left everyone frozen. This wasn't just a garage, it was a secret life. And now, it's finally revealed. Join us as we uncover what was hidden in the garage. Inside the garage, no one was allowed to see. Hidden in Clearwater, Florida, far from the busy crowds and flashy lights, there was a part of Hulk Hogan's life that was kept secret. It wasn't a wrestling arena or a display room for trophies. Instead, it was a garage that had been locked up and forgotten for many years, known to only a select few. Not his fans, not the media, and not even some of his closest friends were aware of its existence. The private multi-car garage was never shown on camera and was not mentioned in interviews. It was not a part of his flashy public persona, and he kept it private by not posting photos or talking about it. Hogan valued his garage for personal reasons, not for fame or glory. After he passed away, Hogan's grown-up kids and lawyers went into the garage he owned. This was the first time many of them had seen the garage. The metal doors opened slowly, as if protecting something special. When the family entered, they stopped suddenly. They did not just discover old cars, they found something more meaningful. It was like uncovering a secret world that showed the real person behind the public facade. Not the actor or singer, but the individual who had experienced great successes and struggles. It was more than just cars and motorcycle gear. It held memories, stories, and emotion. Dozens of spotless vehicles were lined up in perfect rows, like cars in a private museum display. Each one was polished to look brand new with no dust or signs of aging. Every detail looked intentional, showing that Hogan himself took great care of them. In the middle of the room was a special Dodge Challenger RT with gold accents. This car was very noticeable, not just because it was shiny, but because it seemed familiar. The gold details were not part of the original design. Hogan had them painted to match the gold championship belt he wore during his famous wrestling days. This car was his favorite, and it had sentimental value beyond just its engine or appearance. A Dodge Viper GTS was parked close by. It was sleek, fast, and aggressive. The car seemed like it was made for speed, although it had very few miles on it. The owner hardly ever drove it. His friends mentioned that he would joke that it was too fast for Florida. He may have been correct. Even so, he kept it, cared for it, and cherished it. Several customized Harleys lined the walls of the garage. One was bright red and yellow, inspired by his Hulkamania days. Another was matte black with Hollywood Hogan written on it, a nod to his wrestling heel persona in the NWO. Each bike symbolized a different period in his life, with unique colors, styles, and stories. A stunning 1970 Plymouth Cuda was showcased on a lift. This car was as bold as Hogan. It resembled the one from Nash Bridges, but had been enhanced with new suspension and a strong 426 Hemi engine. The car was a powerhouse. Despite its capabilities, it had never been driven aggressively or raced. Similar to the rest of the collection, it sat quietly, almost as if it was stuck in time. The surprises kept coming. A whole wall was covered in glass cases holding miniature model cars, intricately detailed. These were not ordinary collectibles from a store. They were unique handcrafted editions, some created just for him. A few were even painted to resemble the real cars parked close by. This passion for model cars was not just a hobby for him, it was a crucial part of who he was. Hidden behind a car cover was a powerful Shelby GT500 Super Snake, known for its raw strength. Next to it was a restored Buick GNX. Under a gray cover sat a Corvette Zerone. All the cars were well-maintained, low mileage, and protected. It wasn't just about power, it was also about the emotional connection to the vehicles. Hogan was known for his lively and energetic personality. However, in this garage, everything seemed peaceful and quiet, creating a thoughtful atmosphere. This was his sanctuary, where he could retreat from the hustle and bustle of fame, away from the constant requests for autographs and people shouting his name. He did not these cars for joyrides or to show off. He cherished them like valuable possessions, each one holding special memories. His family was most surprised not by the quantity or worth of the cars, but by how meticulously he had maintained everything. Handwritten notes were found in drawers containing detailed records of oil changes, replacements, and cleaning schedules, all in his handwriting. His personality could be seen in each line, showing his attention to detail and organization. He had documented stories about every car, including when he acquired it, the reasons for buying it, and his emotions towards it. Some of the entries were personal and filled with feelings. It felt like reading a private diary, but instead of words, it was written in chrome and gasoline. This was not a famous person bragging. This was not a performance for supporters. It was more meaningful than that. It was about cherishing something genuine. He associated certain cars with important memories in his life. He purchased some as rewards for his accomplishments. There were a couple of cars he had always dreamed of owning since he was a child, but only managed to buy them later in life. All of his cars had sentimental value to him. However, not all items in the garage were focused on power or aesthetics. Some items held quieter significance. For example, there was a dusty old motorcycle that no longer worked, and a worn-down truck that stood out from the other pristine vehicles. Despite their flaws, these items were still treated with care and importance, perhaps even more so than the rest. There was a wooden crate in one corner. It had framed photos inside, carefully hidden. The photos showed Hogan at different points in his life. Some were with his family, some were alone. Some showed him happy, while others showed him deep in thought. These were not the usual photos fans were familiar with. They were authentic and sincere. As the family continued their exploration, they started to realize a significant detail. This garage was not just for cars. It was all about having power and keeping memories safe in a way that couldn't be stolen. It was about safeguarding aspects of himself that others did not know. The part of him that wasn't loud in the arena or being photographed. The part of him that simply desired peace, tranquility, and beauty. The room was completely quiet, with no movement or noise. It was filled only with the gentle sound of silence and the anticipation of untold stories. Despite all his experiences like fame, scandals, setbacks, and triumphs, this place remained unchanged. Perhaps he visited here when life became overwhelming, or when he wanted to reconnect with his true self. Maybe he created this retreat, knowing that someday someone would discover the person behind the public image. Not a famous symbol or story, just an ordinary human being. He was now in a peaceful garage, with his beloved cars and cherished memories surrounding him, where his family finally got to know him. Hogan's darkest secret. Hidden in the farthest and quietest corner of Hulk Hogan's garage was a surprising sight. It wasn't another colorful sports car or a loud classic muscle car demanding attention. Instead, it was a unique find, a black Chicks Corvette 06 covered in a faded military-style tarp. The car had a sleek, dark paint job that resembled polished stone. It sat low to the ground, looking intimidating and almost as if it was protecting something. Unlike Hulk Hogan's typical extravagant cars, this one wasn't flashy. There were no bright decals or custom vanity plates with catchphrases. There were no posters or mentions in interviews. Not a single photo of it could be found online. It was almost like the car was invisible. However, it did exist and had a heartbreaking story behind it. The Corvette stood out not only for its appearance and speed, but for a hidden surprise. Underneath the tarp and in the trunk, the family discovered a banker's box marked with Hulk Hogan's handwriting and the words "Gawker Final." In that box, there were several legal documents that had been kept hidden for a long time. These were not old magazines or letters from fans, but rather transcripts from court proceedings, settlement letters, and notes from a difficult lawsuit that almost destroyed him. It was not related to wrestling or movies, but rather the well-known 2016 lawsuit against Gawker that Hogan went through. The Corvette may have appeared quiet, but it had a significant backstory. People close to the family shared that Hogan purchased the car shortly after the verdict. It wasn't meant for display or showing off, but more of a silent statement. Some even referred to it as his revenge car. It was logical. The car was not flashy, but it was powerful. It was supercharged, speedy, and aggressive, just like the man who had overcome that legal battle. Unlike the famous Hulk Hogan seen on TV, this car was not loud. It did not stand out. It remained hidden. It was plain, devoid of any signs of fame. Even the license plate revealed nothing, just plain black, sleek and silent. Another part of this very personal story was concealed under the passenger seat. Hogan had hidden a check stub from a legal fund that had closed. On the stub, the words "Revenge, not Justice" were written in the same handwriting. Beside it was a folder containing letters that Hogan had written to his legal team, expressing intense emotions and raw thoughts. One particular letter caught my attention. Instead of being mailed, it had a simple message: "I did not win, "I survived." The car was no longer just a mode of transportation. It had become a moving diary, revealing the true impact of the court battle on him. For fans who only knew him for his bleach blonde hair, muscular build, famous catchphrases, and energetic persona, this car displayed a different side of him, a more subdued and vulnerable side that had been deeply affected and almost shattered. It was as though uncovering a layer of armor to reveal the wounded man hiding underneath. In a garage with many exciting and powerful cars, there was one Corvette that seemed to have a different story to tell. While the other cars symbolized success and popularity, this particular Corvette represented betrayal, sorrow, and the sacrifices of fame. The family continued to search through the garage, and each time they found something new, the atmosphere changed. What they originally thought was just a place filled with old vehicles and memories turned out to be much more meaningful. It seemed like each car had its mystery, and in one dimly lit corner, it felt like the Corvette was hiding something, almost as if it was eagerly waiting for someone to uncover the secret that had been kept hidden for a long time. More letters were discovered, with some expressing anger and sadness, while others read like personal diary entries with questions and doubts. A few letters discussed the difficulty of trusting others and deciding who to rely on. One letter even mentioned feeling isolated and lonely, especially during times of failure in the spotlight. One of the most significant discoveries they made was not inside the car, but rather on a small metal shelf next to it. It was a photo that was not in a frame, but carefully placed. The photo depicted Hogan standing next to the Corvette at night, alone in a dimly lit garage. He appeared deep in thought, not smiling or posing. This image left a lasting impact on the family as it showed a different side of Hogan, a man who had endured a difficult experience and emerged from it still standing, though not unscathed. The garage was once viewed as a space of energy, fast vehicles, and enjoyment, but now it felt more somber. The cars were no longer just machines. They were now intertwined with Hogan's life, each holding a tale, be it happy or sad. Among them, the Corvette held the toughest story of all. Even with all the noisy engines and colorful cars in the garage, one car stood out for being quiet and calm. It did not have to be loud or flashy to make an impact. It just sat there, representing truth, memories, and emotions. It was a symbol of resilience, reminding us that everyone, even those who seem tough, have faced challenges and overcome them quietly. As the family left the corner, they did not just see a car, they saw a glimpse into a man's life who had overcome struggles outside of the boxing ring. This man had faced deep pain, but found his way to find peace, not through recognition or fame, but through quiet reflection and honesty. The Corvette would never be put on display. It wouldn't be shared online or shown to fans. Instead, it would remain in a quiet corner of the garage as a reminder, a symbol, and a silent storyteller that did not need attention to be impactful. The quiet garage where Hulk Hogan hid his heart. In Clearwater, Florida, there was a special garage owned by Hulk Hogan. While it looked like a regular garage from the outside, inside it held personal items and emotions. It wasn't a place for public display, but rather a place for reflection and authenticity for the man behind the wrestling persona. The garage was more than just a storage space for cars. It was a space filled with memories, both good and bad, where the man sought to find his true self after a lifetime of pretending. Among the shiny cars were old storage lockers, rusty file cabinets, and wooden chests with worn handles. Each of them had something hidden inside, like a secret or a memory frozen in time. They did not have trophies or letters from fans. Instead, they held something even more valuable: his truth. In classic cars' glove boxes and center consoles, there were handwritten letters addressed to his children. Some letters were neatly folded while others were crumpled. These letters dated back to the 1990s and were written in either neat cursive or rushed scribbles. The lighter letters contained dad jokes, road trip stories, and silly thoughts. However, some letters were more serious, mentioning missed birthdays, broken promises, and mistakes made while chasing fame. One note was particularly striking. "I built the world's biggest character and I lost myself in him." Hidden in a fireproof lockbox behind the back tire of an old GTO were journal pages from the time when he was a famous wrestler. These writings were meant for only his eyes and told a different story, not the one of his loud and powerful wrestling persona that fans were familiar with. In the entries, he talked about the quietness of hotel rooms after matches, the loneliness he felt during long nights, and the struggle of living a double life as both Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea. He questioned whether anyone truly cared about him once the cameras were off, and expressed confusion about his identity. One page summed it up perfectly. Everyone wanted Hulk, no one wanted Terry. Photographs were spread out on old workbenches and shelves. These were not the shiny professional photos that fans are familiar with, but Polaroids from a time long past. The pictures captured family moments, genuine smiles, and unposed eyes. Some images showed wrestlers who had passed away, embracing each other like siblings. Certain photos had no descriptions, only frozen memories. However, one picture caught my attention. In the photo, Hogan stood in front of his garage with his arms crossed, no bandana or sunglasses. He wasn't posing, just a tired, quiet, and authentic man. Mysterious cassette tapes and mini DV reels were found among pictures and letters. The labels on them said "Private, do not copy" in black Sharpie. The contents of the tapes are unknown. Some think they could be personal confessions, while others believe they might have unseen interviews or video messages to his family. They have not been touched and are sealed tightly like everything else in that room. This garage was more than just a storage space for tools and equipment. It was a place where important memories were made. Every part of the garage, from the drawers to the shelves to the hidden corners, held a piece of the man who created a famous character. In this quiet and dusty space, you could see the true essence of the man who portrayed Hulk on screen, but kept his real self hidden. Terry designed Hulk to be powerful, outspoken, and unwavering, but in this garage, you could find Terry's authentic self. In the back of the garage, past the motorcycles and trophies, there was a unique sight. A car was hidden under two tarps, unlike the shiny vehicles around it. This car was unfinished, with raw metal and mismatched panels. The interior was incomplete and exposed. It had no license plates, paperwork, or VIN number. The only identifier was a plaque near the engine that said, "To those I failed." The people who were closest to Hogan were surprised by the discovery. The car was not meant to be shown off. It was very personal to him. Hogan had been secretly working on this project. He never mentioned it in public. There was a huge twin-turbo V8 engine under the hood, but nothing was hooked up. The wiring on the dashboard was loose. The frame rails were custom-made from the beginning. This was not a restoration, it was a unique creation. It was a tribute, but to who? Relatives recall him mentioning a plan to construct a car with a deceased individual. Some speculate it was linked to his brother who passed away in the 1980s. Others think it was intended for a wrestling friend who passed away. The true reason remains unknown. However, it is evident that this undertaking carried a lot of sentimental value for him. Inside the passenger door, there was a note folded and taped lightly. The note had only 5 words. "Still trying to make it right." It was not signed. The seats had initials stitched on them that did not belong to any family member. The floor was covered in old wrestling flyers, possibly placed there on purpose. They may have been put there to remind him of his beginnings in wrestling and how far he has come. This car wasn't built for fast driving. It wasn't made to be famous. It wasn't a sought-after collector's item. It was incomplete, kept out of sight, and had a deep significance. It was never going to be displayed at a glamorous event or featured in a magazine. Instead, it remained hidden like a mystery that was never solved. It served as a reminder that even heroes have hidden pain that they keep to themselves. This garage was completely different from what fans knew. While everyone supported Hulk Hogan, repeated his famous sayings, wore his products, and saw him as a symbol of power, the actual man was quietly reflecting on his life. He had portrayed a character so influential that it overshadowed his true identity. Here, surrounded by engines, letters, photos, and an incomplete car, he was attempting to rediscover parts of himself. Each object in the garage revealed a piece of the untold story that was never captured by the cameras. It wasn't flashy or loud like a performance under the spotlight. The contents were simple, genuine, and understated. The garage was where he found refuge. It wasn't a hiding place from society, but from the pressures of being in the spotlight all the time. In this space, he wasn't seen as Hulk Hogan. He was simply known as Terry, reflecting, searching for answers, and possibly working on self-recovery. The silent space Hogan left behind. Nick Hogan was the first person to reveal a long-hidden truth. He did not do it in a public setting, but in a quiet moment where his words held importance not because of his fame, but because of his knowledge. He spoke about his father Hulk Hogan's special garage, which wasn't just any garage, but a space where his father went to find solitude and clarity. According to Nick, Hulk did not use the garage just for mechanical work, but as a personal retreat to reflect and relax. At times, he would relax inside his black Corvette in the garage with the engine turned off. There was no music playing and no activity, just him enjoying the calmness and peace. He would spend hours in this state. While the world outside could be loud and demanding, inside the garage time seemed to slow down and it felt safe and quiet. The items found in Hulk Hogan's garage were not surprising to those close to him. A friend described the garage as a place where he found solace. When things became overwhelming, Hulk Hogan would retreat to this space. It wasn't about hiding, but about listening. He listened to the sounds of the machines, his heartbeat, and thoughts he couldn't vocalize. His daughter, Brooke, experienced something special in the garage. It wasn't the flashy cars or the smell of oil that caught her attention. Instead, it was a hidden note behind the gas tank of an old Harley. The note had a personal message just for her. It said, "I created this world to keep you safe. I apologize if it did not always succeed." This single sentence had a greater impact than any trophy or accolade could have. It broke down all the walls and tough images associated with Hulk Hogan. It revealed the man behind the wrestler persona, the father. Sherry, who was Hogan's partner in his later years, broke her silence and shared her memories. She recalled finding him at the kitchen table late at night, drawing car part designs. Sometimes he would sketch bolts, while other times he would create whole engine layouts. Initially, she thought he was working on another custom car project. However, she eventually realized that it wasn't about the cars, but about him. With each sketch, he was rebuilding himself piece by piece. The family decided to keep the garage locked after his death and did not turn it into a public display or museum. There are no guided tours or cameras, and it is not for sale. The garage is considered sacred and private by the family, not meant for public viewing. Nick mentioned that the garage was the only place where his dad was just himself, not the persona of Hulk Hogan, but simply a father. In a world where he had lost most things, his time, privacy, and peace, the garage provided something in return. It offered him space and control. It was a small part of his life that was still alone. No attention, no admirers, just him and the silence. Entering the garage now is like stepping into his emotions. Each item inside holds a memory, from the shelves to the stains on the floor. However, some stories are kept secret and harder to uncover. Just below a car being stored on a hydraulic lift, a box was discovered under an old steel tool cabinet. The box was not marked or locked, only sealed with electrical tape. The sides of the box were damaged from water, and the cardboard looked worn out. However, the contents inside were very significant. It is now referred to as the Box of Ghosts because of its mysterious nature. The box contained old VHS tapes, faded Polaroid pictures, torn contracts, and a few things that made the family pause in silence. The tapes were marked manually. The names were written in black marker. These names would be familiar to longtime fans of wrestling, such as Savage, Piper, Bischoff, and even Linda, Hogan's former wife. However, these recordings were not wrestling promotions or fights. They were home videos. Some were made during the WCW era, while others seemed to be just family videos. One particular tape was especially noticeable. Its label read, "99 Tour Never Again." It had a red X on it, with no additional information or explanation. The family has decided not to share any videos and has no intention of doing so. The contents of the tapes are private and not meant for the public to see. Those who have viewed parts of the videos mention that they are intimate and personal, not meant for publicity or entertainment. The recordings capture real and emotional moments, some of which are difficult to watch and too emotional to put into words. Next to the tapes were ancient agreements. A few were for partnerships and sponsorships that never materialized. One had a yellow sticky note attached to it saying, "Took the money, regretted it forever." Another contract was for a memoir that remained incomplete. Its working title was The Weight of the Belt. Some pages had signatures while others did not. It's unclear if he began writing it but stopped due to emotional pain. The full story remains a mystery. The pictures were difficult to view. Many of them were starting to curl at the edges. The colors had faded over time, making them appear more subdued. However, these photos captured unique moments that were unseen by others. One image showed Hogan playing with his children in the backyard, a smile on his face as he held a garden hose. There were also group shots with wrestlers who were no longer around, their faces brimming with joy and vitality. But it was one particular photo that stood out to everyone. Hogan in full costume, seated on a folding chair backstage, completely by himself. His head was bowed, not posing for the camera. He seemed lost in thought, waiting or perhaps reflecting deeply. These were not mementos from successful times. They were not something to boast about. They were personal items from a man's private life, not the image portrayed on television or in interviews. They represented the side of him that experienced emotions like pain, joy, regret, and love, which only a few people were aware of. The garage was not meant to be a grand structure, but rather a place to get away. It was a sanctuary where one person could take a break from the world, even if just for a short time. Now, it contains more than just vehicles and equipment. What do you think about Hulk Hogan Garage? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more celebrity gist. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.